on your end?
Yes, I think I'm good.
Okay, awesome. Let's start then.
Okay, before another wire decides to mess us up.
Let's hope not.
Okay, so welcome. Who have I not met? Oscar and Peace.
And Peace, yes.
Yes, glad to have you today. You obviously missed you the other sessions, but I'm sure you have managed to catch up from the rest of the people. So today we are looking at delegation, coordination, and control. And like I said, most of these things have been mentioned in the process of the many other things we have been looking at before. We mentioned quite a bit of control in our last session when you're looking at the role of managers and many other things that had been covered before. So probably the much that had not been mentioned too much is delegation. So that's what you might be going into a bit of details. But on coordination and control, pretty much brushing through what we have done before. So that I ask him what delegation is.
Yes.
So Oscar, what is delegation, or what's your understanding of the word delegation?
Look, I think we are breaking. I don't know whether it's our internet or that side. We missed out something in the conversation.
Okay. Purity, what is my network stable or am I getting lost?
No. Me, I can hear you clearly. So,
okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's coming.
Try to go back again, Rosemary.
Okay. So I think the only question I was asking, Oscar, what's your definition of delegation, or what comes to mind when you hear the word delegation?
Oh, what I hear about delegation. Now we can hear it. Delegation, the basic thing that I can say is, I think of giving a guide to someone or on work that if you had a certain job or task to do, so delegating is asking someone else to do it, but with a clear guidance.
Asking somebody else to do what you are supposed to do, but you give them guidance, right?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else who wants to add to that? Lydia, anything to add on delegation?
Yes, I think to my mind, delegation is letting somebody do or perform a certain role or task on your behalf.
Okay. Letting somebody perform a task on your behalf. Thank you very much. John, anything? John, can I hear you?
No, I think that's the one I would mention.
That's what you also had in mind. So basically you have the starting idea of somebody else doing your work, but it might not necessarily be just passing people your work. There's a lot that comes with the word delegation. And let me know if you have an issue with my network, Purity. I just want to be sure that we are all on the same page.
I can actually hear you clearly. I don't know if the other team is able to hear you clearly.
Lydia, is it breaking now or you're good? Lydia?
No, we are struggling to hear her.
Okay,
they're struggling to hear
you.
So I'm wondering because my volume looks okay, my network looks stable.
Lydia, are you able to hear me clearly when I speak?
Yes.
But you're not able to hear Rosemary.
It's okay. Purity, let's try this. Rosemary can continue without our video. Sometimes the video takes some internet, so
sure, definitely. Okay, let's proceed then.
Okay, so let me proceed for like 5 or so minutes, then you let me know if anything is breaking. And like you
Yes.
say, sometimes the video takes quite a bit of it, and it kind of throws you off balance.
Yes.
So let me start by the other side of the definition of delegation. Like I've said, you have quite a bit idea of it in terms of the work that you give somebody else to do for you. Clearly, that obviously means that you are sharing something, but it's not just passing on work to other people. It's not just asking somebody to do work on your behalf. There's something much more to it. So when you look at it from that perspective, we say delegation is sharing of authority, responsibility, and accountability between two or more people. So there's so much more that you share. When you give somebody his work, when you're saying you're delegating by passing work, it's not just work that you're passing. You're thinking about responsibility, you're thinking about authority, and you're thinking about accountability. What's the difference between those three words? Somebody wants to give it a thought. What's the difference between responsibility, authority, and accountability? Why do we look at delegation in terms of I can give you responsibility and not give you authority? I can actually give you responsibility and maybe I'm thinking who is accountable by the end of it. So we need to be able to clarify those three words. What is responsibility? What is authority? What is accountability? And what's the difference between the three? Lydia, can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, somebody wants to give us a definition of either or all, responsibility, authority, accountability. What's your thought about those three words? When you say you're delegating, you are sharing these three things, or at least one or two of those three things. What's the difference? What's the difference between authority, responsibility, and accountability? If you want to give it a try, I think you're the one I've not heard your voice today.
I think I can give some idea on authority. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Authority, it's power given to someone to authorize something.
So when you have been given authority, you have a certain level of power to do something. That's pretty true. Somebody else wants to try another one. That's authority. Somebody wants to tell us responsibility or accountability.
To me, this is John.
Yes, John.
I think authority has to do with power to decide. It's mostly about power. Then responsibility is about assignment and the work that is supposed to be done. You can have the responsibility of assignment or a work that you have to accomplish, but you don't have authority to decide when it comes some decisions that needs to be made. However much you're given that task to accomplish, but whenever it comes to decision regarding it, you need to consult someone because you're not given that full authority to decide which way are you going to use doing that responsibility to make it as you think it can be done better. So to me, authority is about power, then the responsibility is about a duty or assignment to accomplish.
Very well put. Thank you very much, John. When you're given a responsibility, you have been given work that you are supposed to do, but does not automatically mean that you have been given the authority or the power to make certain decisions. So you can actually delegate responsibility and not delegate authority, or you can delegate a certain level of authority and not full authority. So it's always good to know when you're delegating, have you delegated both responsibility and authority? Or have you just given person the responsibility to just do the work, but they do not have the right to continue? And like John has said, they probably need to come back to you to seek authority or for them to be given a go ahead to be able to have certain rights or to do certain things because they do not have the powers. That is very well put. Somebody wants to talk about accountability? We have responsibility, we have authority, that those ones have been very well described. Somebody wants to talk about accountability? Any ideas?
Yes. I think accountability is being responsible and the authoritative person to that role. Like you can authorize and it's yours. It's yours. I mean, you own it, so you're accountable for it. That's
You're answerable by the end of the day.
Yes.
Exactly. So that describes the three words, and I think having understood that, then our next discussion around delegation becomes pretty simple. Because now that you understand, when you give out work, when you delegate or when you share, you are either sharing responsibility, authority, or accountability. If you're sharing responsibility, you are giving somebody an obligation to make decisions and take action. So you're telling them, do this work. But it also depends on whether you have given them the authority. What that means is that have you given them the right to make decisions and take action? Meaning I've given you this work, you can go do this report, you can actually send it out, you can even make recommendations because you have all the authority to do all that. And eventually what also counts is, are they accountable, or who is accountable by the end of the day? Are they answerable for the kind of results that they are actually going to get? That is pretty much important. So it's very important to always ask yourself whether you have done the three things or whether you have done a part of them, and if the person you are delegating to actually understands that. Understand what you have actually given them. Have you delegated responsibility, accountability, and authority, or have you delegated some and not all of them? That is pretty much important to always notice. So like we said, responsibility, you have given the person the obligation to do the work. If you have also given them authority, they have the right to make decisions and take action, probably without coming back to you. If you have not given them full authority, like you can see later, is that they can actually come back to you for more directions. And if you have given them accountability, it also means they are answerable. At the end of the day, they need to answer for the results. If they do have hazard work, if they do have baked work, they are answerable. They need to make sure that they actually do the right thing. So delegation is important in leadership and management. We say it's a secret sauce to effective leadership. We can see why. Why do we consider it a source or a secret sauce for effective leadership? Why is delegation important as an addition that can add a bit of flavor to the work that we do? So I want to throw it back to you. What are some of the advantages that you know of delegation, whether to the person delegating or the person being delegated to? What are there advantages that come with it, and what do you have in mind in terms of the advantages or the benefits of delegation? Why are we saying it's the secret sauce as far as leadership is concerned? Is there something that comes with it in terms of advantages to the person being delegated to and to the person delegating or to the organization? Somebody wants to give us something. What are some of the benefits that come with delegation to anybody within the organization, the delegatee, the delegator, the organization? Is there somebody who benefits? Purity is looking at it like those words even exist, like delegators. I know, but I know delegatee exists. So to the delegatee or the person delegating, you as the manager, as you delegate, do you benefit? The person you're delegating to, do they benefit? Does the organization benefit? Tim, tell me something.
John, here, what I think is that the three parties benefit from delegation. I mean the company, the delegating, and the one who delegates. First of all, the one who delegates to him, it eases the work. It means it means not everything has to be you. Sometimes others has also to help you and ease the work. That's one, to the one who delegates. Even that one who is delegated, also it helps that person to learn more. It increases the knowledge, skills regarding the work that is being delegated to the person. That's the benefit to that person who is delegated. Then to the company, it also it makes the work easier to all concerned, and also increases responsibility and accountability, where everyone feels responsible, not that everything has to wait for that single specific person. Everyone can be responsible anytime if it is required. So it increases the spirit of ownership and responsibility, and that benefits the company, where it's not that someone specific has to be there for this specific thing to be done. Everyone can do it if that person is not around. So it eases the work in that sense. It helps the company, and there's no man who is that specific for a specific task. everyone can do when that person is not around. So that's what I think. What can do.
Thank you very much, John. It eases work to the person who is delegating. It increases responsibility. In that sense, it also builds capacity, because it builds capacity within the organization of the people who can actually have certain skills, and it builds capacity for the person who is being delegated to, because they get to learn. That's pretty much good. Another one person before we proceed. Maybe again it's time. Thanks to technology.
Yes.
Anybody else wants to add anything above what John has said? Oscar?
I would have loved Lydia to be the one to share her views. But I think the quick example, I'll use an example saying that is commonly used to illustrate the importance of delegation. They say that in Africa, when an owner of the business dies, that the business takes the next plot at the cemetery. So the whole point is, I think businesses, we are getting this lecture as a business. But someone owns a boutique, it's a sort of partnership, and then 3 people merge, they form a partnership, when they start a share company or something. So I look at the delegation as and it's mixed with the leadership as overall it increases performance, and it shows that there is business continuity. So everything, the whole of this thing is not dependent on one person. So there's flow, and once the flow is there, then it means that continuity is there. And then along the way, it means information is being across different things. So that's what I wanted to highlight on that.
Thank you very much.
The picture you shared would make people feel hungry something, and it's a good one for delegation.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so it's a way of developing somebody else who could actually take after you. Like we say in leadership, you're not a leader until you have built another leader or developed another leader. So in that case, as Oscar is putting it, the reason why family business dies is because you did not delegate or you did not grow another person. So one way of growing people to fit into your shoes is to actually continuously delegate work to them. So I think those are the many things we have probably said here. So benefits for the manager or the supervisor, that more tasks gets accomplished in less time. I think John has explained that. As a manager, you get to concentrate on more critical tasks, because sometimes you're concentrating on so many not very high priority work that could actually be accomplished by somebody else. So if you could actually delegate that work, you can now be able to concentrate on more critical tasks. It's also a way of increasing morale for the team and also for yourself, because you get to focus on more critical things. It leads to increased productivity for you again, because you're able to concentrate on critical work. You give it better attention without having to divide your attention around too many things. So your productivity also increases. And again, more effective leadership, like Oscar has said, it gives you a chance to develop somebody else. And developing somebody else is what we consider as effective leadership. So if you're able to develop somebody who can fit into your shoes, again, that makes you a good leader. And better time management, because there's whatever amount of time that you have, you're able to plan it better without having to deal with so much work that would actually be done by somebody else. Like again, we said it's not just benefiting the person who is delegating, it is also a way of benefiting the person who is being delegated to. So they get an opportunity to increase their job knowledge, which is again a pretty good thing, because again, at this point, you get to learn more than just what you are is within your job description. It's an opportunity to develop leadership, decision-making skills for future leadership roles. Like you said, you are being grown. You are developing capacity for your next thing. It increases motivation if you're given more challenging work. If you're given work that actually you know is supposed to be my boss doing this work, but I'm doing it. It's a good thing. It's a good feel to increase your motivation. Better understanding of company goals, because sometimes you're given work that you don't do on a day-to-day basis. As you do that work, You get to learn other things about the company that you probably didn't know before, because this work has been done by your boss, and in the process you learn a few things, and you get a better understanding of how the company operates. Of course, when you're given higher roles, when you're given work that your boss does, eventually you have enhanced self-confidence, you have enhanced self-esteem, and you have enhanced self-worth. So actually, is a good thing, like we have said, for both the manager, for the person being delegated to, and for the organization as well. Most importantly, it's a way of capacity building. It's a way of building capacity for the subordinates, and giving you effective leadership for you to be able to work better and develop other leaders. So eventually, delegation becomes, like we have said, it's your source. It's your secret source to effective leadership in terms of building capacity and in terms of you being able to work better as a manager. But then, why is it that people don't delegate as much? What are some of the reasons you think that actually we don't delegate as much as we should? What do you think is the issue? If you have come across people who are not very good at delegating, or people who seem to hesitate delegation, what do you think lies behind that? What do you think would make a manager or a supervisor find it hard to delegate to the people or to the subordinates? As much as we know it's a good source for effective leadership, what would make a manager find it hard to delegate? Somebody with any ideas? Have you come across a manager who finds it hard to delegate? What do you think was behind it? Do you find it hard to delegate yourself? What are some of these things that you actually struggle with that make you find it hard to delegate? Lydia and Tim. Lydia, I cut you in the previous one, so you can extend it to barriers of delegation. What are some of the things that actually make it hard for people to delegate, or for managers and supervisors to delegate? I'm waiting to see somebody remove the mute. Oh, thank you. So that I know I'm not talking to myself.
Yes.
Somebody wants to go first?
President, do you want to come again on that?
Sorry?
Do you want to come again on the question?
Yes, I'm asking, what are some of the barriers of delegation? What makes it hard for supervisors and managers to delegate?
Yeah, okay. So, this video, why don't you delegate?
Nice one.
Why don't you delegate? At times I'm confident enough, or even worried that the role might not be executed as I want, and I'm fearing to be accountable at the end of the day.
Very nice. I like the genuineness and authenticity in that. Yes, sometimes we find it hard to delegate because you're thinking this person is not even going to do it the best way I want it done, and eventually I'm responsible for the results. So then I'm going to have a problem. Yeah, that's very true. That's some of the reasons why we don't delegate. Anybody else with a different reason why they find it hard to delegate? Yeah, that's a perfect delegators. Anybody else with a different reason?
Delegation is actually quite a difficult thing. It's not that easily done. I don't know whether it's a transition that initially many people were not familiar with it. The myths that I hear about it we've had scenarios where people don't want to delegate because they fear that the senior will take over, will get everything. Then it takes time. You need to, it's not like I don't think it's a one-off thing that you wake up and do it. It requires preparation, and it requires that there's an order of how you're doing it, because at the beginning it will take some time. It requires huge trust, because at the beginning someone will make some mistakes, and you need to be able to know at what stage to advise that. You don't wake up one day and then someone who have not done anything and you say prepare an invoice for $1 million, then you put yourself up for a big thing. So I think it's a huge, because to me, I personally have struggled with it. I'm on a journey for that. So I know that there are a couple of barriers about it, because it's not just a small element that you can pick up and do. So those are the few barriers that I would look at, which I would relate to, that most of the organizations, you find that it's not been a culture that they have put in front. So hence, it will end up taking time coming back.
Thank you very much. That summarizes the many things I would have actually talked about, starting from the fact that sometimes most people are actually not familiar with the delegation. We know the word, but the process itself does not come as easily as the word comes. So we are not all very familiar with what this delegation business is all about. Two, there's that aspect of if I delegate somebody and they become good, they might actually overtake me. So there's that fear of somebody else becoming too good and then I become irrelevant. Again, in fact, in leadership, we say we need to have abundance mentality to let people get the credit. It's a learning process. Then, like he's mentioned, delegation is a process. It's not a one-day thing. It is literally like working through somebody. It's like the whole process of coaching and mentoring again. So it's not a one-off thing. It is very tedious. So actually, you need to have the patience and the time to work with that person until they learn the way you want to learn. Again, like he's mentioned, there's a risk aspect to it. Like said, I'm not going to tell you to do a $1 million invoice and then something goes wrong and I have to deal with it later. So that also means that there's a process to it. So that summarizes the many challenges that we find around delegation and the barriers that comes with it. So once that some people believe it's wrong to let subordinates do their assigned work. Again, that could be a mentality or just the fact that we were not well introduced into the aspect of delegation. There's a fear that subordinates will not perform. Lydia has told us that. You feel they are not going to do it as well as you want it done. Sometimes you believe you can do it better and faster. Obviously, if you think they can't do it well, it's because you think you can actually do it better and faster yourself. Because you're thinking, I don't have all the time in the world, so I'm not really going to sit here and wait for somebody to go through this and not do it as well as I think it should be done. Sometimes also because we are unwilling to let go of our favorite task. You've been doing this work, you like doing it, it feels good to do it. So you're thinking, how do I now drop it and leave somebody else to do it? Again, it takes a bit of learning and a bit of embracing leadership for you to know that it is okay sometimes to let other people grow as well. And like somebody has said, we may not have the confidence in the subordinates that they can actually do the kind of work to the level that we want in terms of quality, appropriateness, quantity. So if you don't have that confidence that they can actually be able to perform that well, then you will have a problem giving it to them. John has said that fear of losing control, because I mean, if you get to know all that I do and you can do it, then I become irrelevant to some extent. So there's that fear that you might actually lose control. There's a fear that they make you look bad, like Lydia said, they are going to do some bad job and then I'm accountable by the end of the day. So I'm the one looking like I'm not working here because I handed it over to somebody else. Sometimes it's also lack of self-confidence because you feel like you're burdening somebody else to actually do your work. So if you're a manager and you're not very confident, you might actually find it hard to give somebody else work to do. So you find managers who are stuck in the office up to midnight on Saturday and Sunday trying to finish work just because they don't have the guts to stand up and tell somebody else to do that work. So that actually could also be an issue. So how do we deal with that? First of all, we need to remember, like we said, delegation is the source. So remember that effective leaders are responsible for getting the job done and not necessarily doing it all themselves. I will say that again so that Lydia can remember after I am gone. Leaders who are effective are responsible for getting the job done, not necessarily doing it all themselves. So just because the work was done by somebody else does not necessarily mean that you did not do the job. Your work as a leader is actually not to do the job. The moment you step into a place where you are leading a team, whether as a supervisor, a team leader, anything else above that, your work is not to get the job done. Your work is to get work done through other people. So it is not how much you do as an individual, it is actually how you get the other people to be able to do other jobs. So you are responsible for getting the job done, not necessarily doing the work done, not necessarily you doing the work itself. So if you can get other people to do the job and they do it well, then that will make it easy for you to be actually remember that delegation is all about effective leadership. It is getting other people to get the job done, not necessarily doing it yourself. So that's one thing you always need to have at the back of your mind. If you're struggling to delegate, always remind yourself, I'm a leader, I'm responsible for getting the job done, not necessarily doing the job by myself or doing it all by myself. And another reminder again that effective leaders are committed to maximizing potential of each subordinate. Like we said the other day, even for supervisors who are sponsors, meaning they are responsible for people's career development. As an effective leader, you are responsible for growing the people that you have. So it is your job to maximize the potential of each subordinate, of each person who reports to you. So, and the easiest way to do that again is through delegation. Remember that when a job is well done, no matter who did it, it makes you look good. So in this case, assuming your subordinates do a good job, in this case, assuming that you're able to delegate and a lot of work actually gets well done, the people at the top are not going to realize who did all those small bits and pieces. It eventually comes back to you and it actually makes you look good. But most importantly, understand the delegation process. The moment you understand the process of delegating, like we've been told, the beginning of all this problem is because people don't understand delegation. So if you're able to understand the process, then you minimize the risk of failure. You minimize the risk of potential failure. So all those other fears of they're not going to do the job well, they're not going to do it as fast as I could, they can actually be addressed if you're able to understand the delegation process. So as you look to break those barriers, remember those things. You're responsible for getting the job done, not necessarily doing it all yourself. As an effective leader, it is your job and you should be committed to maximizing the potential of your subordinates. When a job is well done, no matter who did it, as a leader, you get to look good. Understanding the process of delegation will help you minimize the risk of potential failure. So let's look at a few principles of delegation that are going to help you minimize those potential risks that I'm talking about. Like John has said, there are things you think about delegating and you freeze. Like me, I give you a whole $1 million invoice and then something goes wrong. I'm not going home because of you. So again, that simply means there are things you should never delegate. Not everything should be delegated. So things that you should actually not delegate, obvious supervisor to subordinate responsibilities, is the obvious things you have been giving them. Even if you call it delegation, they know you give them anyway. So it does not grow them in any way. It does not increase their potential in any way. Tasks that involve confidential information, there's information that's only supposed to be known by management. From where you sit, if that information is only supposed to be known at management level based on company policies, then you should never be able to, you should never actually delegate such. Tasks that involve great risk, and I like that mention of a $1 million invoice, that's a high risk kind of a task. Because if something goes wrong, it can actually go very wrong. So something that can actually cost the organization so much money or reputation or mess the company's brand, you want to not delegate and handle it yourself so that you're sure it is actually well done. Tasks that the organization or the supervisor or manager is actually expected to do themselves, maybe again by company policy. The company policy might actually say that, for example, appraisals can only be done by a supervisor or a manager, so that you cannot delegate to somebody else. The organization's policies state that. Those are things that you actually should not delegate. So that's rightfully put, there are things actually you should not delegate. What things are you looking to delegate? What is routine to you, but not routine to the subordinates? There are things that are actually routine to you. A report you run every day, something else that you actually do, but to somebody else, it's not something that they routinely do. So you could pass that on so that it eases your work. Something you've been putting off due to lack of time. So you know this needs to be done, but you're so overwhelmed, you feel like you do not have the time to do that. You've been putting it aside, not because you're procrastinating, but you're generally or genuinely overwhelmed. That again, you should be able to delegate. Something you've been wrestling with unsuccessfully, you've been trying to do it, it's actually not working. But within your team, you probably have somebody who is really good at it. There's a report you've been trying to analyze and you need to come up with a certain presentation, there's just refusing to get that. You have this admin in your team who is very good with analysis, analytics, and presentations, and you know they could actually get it well done. Why do you want to keep wrestling with it? Pass it on to that person. Unexpected and planned requirements that are interrupting other projects. Sometimes you had really planned your week or your day and the way things should come up, and something unplanned comes up. There's a client who wants a meeting, there's a client who wants a certain report, and you actually have somebody within the team who actually you think can be able to handle that, because it's not a big issue. He can actually sit into that meeting and then come back and tell you what was actually discussed in that meeting. Why not give them that exposure to know what happens in those clients' meetings? Something which is a headache for you, but will be fun for somebody else, like we all have some few things we don't like. There are some things they are just not good. Okay, they are good, but we just don't like doing them. They're not fun for us. But for somebody else, they would love to actually do that. So why not give that person a chance to be able to showcase what they can be able to do through that? So again, like we mentioned, some fears are actually genuine, and they are good because they make you not delegate some things you should actually never delegate, like confidential information, tasks which are very great risks, tasks that only you, according to company policy, should be doing them. But there are things you need to delegate because they are routine to you, but not routine to somebody else. You wrestle with them and you don't have enough time. They are a headache to you, but for somebody else, that work would actually be much fun. Those things you actually want to delegate so that you can be able to give somebody else a chance to develop, but at the same time, get time to focus on other things that are more critical to you and that will add value to your life. Any comments on that before I continue with the rest of the delegation principles? John, does that clear a bit of the few things you had in mind in terms of barriers? I'm not sure if it was John or Oscar because you didn't say who was who.
It was John. I think
it was
so.
John.
Yes.
The voice sounded like John.
Yes.
Yes, does it clear some of the concerns that you had? You're on mute.
The concerns was, it was Oscar with the concerns.
Or it was Oscar, so you see we are all confusing your voices.
Okay.
That's the problem of going off video.
Oh, they're back.
Okay.
And they're much
Yes.
clearer.
Yeah, it looks much better now. So I hope your internet has been upgraded. So
Yes.
we won't lose you again. So John looks like he has stepped out. So I hope he will catch up on that and tell us if he has any concerns. Okay, so I think then I can continue with the rest of the delegation principles. What we are looking at here is that you need to use some process to get to a way in which you need to be able to select the right tasks for you to delegate. Because again, like you said, you're not delegating everything, but the process. The whole way of breaking those barriers is actually understanding the process. So you need to ask yourself, for example, right now, what are all the tasks that you presently perform? Then when you evaluate each of those tasks, are there tasks which have potential for delegation? Based on the things we have mentioned, based on the things we have said, you can actually delegate because they are fun to somebody else, you don't have the time, they are headache to you. Based on all those things that we have said and all the tasks that you normally perform, is there a task that you think has potential for delegation? Then based on that, you can actually be able to select one or two tasks that you're actually willing to try to delegate it, because it has to start from somewhere. If you have been struggling to delegate, it has to start from somewhere. It has to start with you deciding these are all the things that I routinely do. When I look at all these things that I routinely do, and based on what we have been told we can actually delegate, what are the tasks that have potential for delegation? Then you can be able to pick one or two items which you are willing to delegate going forward. And that would actually make it easier for you. But that's not enough. Deciding these are the things I can actually delegate is not the end. Next, you need to check who is competent enough. One of the ways in which you can actually be able to beat the barrier that Lydia was talking about somebody not doing a good job, is because somebody needs to have a bit of competency. They may not be at 100%, but they need to have an idea. You don't want to give somebody a task that they are totally clueless about. You don't send somebody to a client's meeting and they don't know anything about that client. You want to look at somebody who probably interacted with that client before or have interacted with that client's data, meaning they have an idea of who this client is. Then if you're sending them into that meeting, they're not going to look very blank. So are they competent? By competent, I need, do they have basic information? Is the person ready? Again, the danger that you have, if you delegate work to somebody who is not ready to be delegated to, they're obviously not going to do a very good job. Remember that what you're delegating to somebody is not their responsibility. It is you who is handing over a responsibility to them. It's not in their job description or KPI. So they need to be willing and ready to do it. Is the person self-confident enough to assume new responsibilities? Again, you don't give it to somebody who is already feeling overwhelmed by what they have. They are feeling not even capable of what is on their table. So you're also looking for somebody who is confident enough because they already feel they're capable of what they're doing and they are open to have more food on their table. If the task requires working with or leading others, does the person have sufficient credibility? If you hand over leadership, for example, you are gone for 1 week and you want somebody to sit in and supervise the team when you are away, they need to have people's credibility. You can't hand over to the person nobody trusts. Everybody thinks they are lazy. They never get to do their work on time. Nobody even likes them for genuine reasons. If the person does not have credibility and you're giving them leading roles, then you also have set yourself up for failure. So again, following some principles of delegation will help you in those other fears that you have. So make sure the person is competent, make sure the person is ready for the delegation, make sure that the person is confident enough to take up new roles based on how they are handling their current roles, and make sure that if it involves leading others, they actually have credibility. They have earned those people's respect. That way, they can easily be able to fit in. Once you hand over the work that you want them to take up, as once you delegate the work, you need to define a few things. Like we said, define responsibility. What's involved? What exactly do you want them to do? Just because I've told you to supervise the team does not mean you start knocking their heads and sending them home. So what exactly have you told them to do? Is it that you just want to make sure everybody comes in on time and goes home on time? Is not the responsibility you have given them. So be very clear. Define the limits of responsibilities that you have actually transferred to them. Don't make it vague. Make sure the person understands exactly what is involved. So you're not going to just take work and drop it on somebody or just tell them, come here, John, from today, you are supervising this thing. What does that word supervising exactly mean? So clarify the responsibility in terms of what exactly you want that person to be doing. Are they checking the people's attendance? Are they checking the people's work? What, after they have checked that work, what does that involve? So define as much details in terms of the task you're giving that person. And it is not from a distance. You probably want to have a one-on-one conversation with that person and define that task. Have you delegated to them? How much of that work do you want them to do? How well do you want that work done? When do you want it done? Who else can they be able to work with, or can they refer to, or can they consult? Give them as much information as they need in terms of task definition. What needs to be done? How much needs to get done? How well you want it done? When you want it done? Who else they can work with or they can consult if they actually are struggling to do it? That would make it easier for you to get the work done. So share as much background information as possible. Is there any previous information they had? You're sending them to meet this client. What other information do they need to have? How did the previous meeting go? What is this client looking forward to? What are their expectations? So give that person as much information as they can. Why is it necessary? If I understand why a task is necessary, I'm likely to give it more thought. If the report you are giving me now is because it needs to be incorporated in the next management meeting report or board meeting report, I'm likely to give it much more thought than if you just tell me, get for me this report. Get for me this report means I might pull an Excel and just throw it at you. But if you tell me I need a report that explains our new client's last month performance for a management meeting, I'm likely to think harder and make it and do it much better. So give them the necessary information. Provide them with relevant material. Is there other places they can get information? Is there somebody else they can look up to? Any other sources of additional information or material that you have that could be of help to them to be able to do the work? There's a previous report done that they could use as a template, anything that will make their work easy. You're not delegating work to somebody to make their life hard. Make it easy for them to actually be able to transition and take up the role. Arrange for any necessary training or at least a bit of explanation on what needs to get done. Emphasize on your confidence in their ability to do the task. Sometimes people will do as well as you actually believe in them. If I know you believe I'm capable of doing such a task, chances are I'm going to try and outdo your expectation, or at least confirm your expectation that I can actually do this. I'll do whatever it takes. If you give me work and you're showing me like, I'm not even sure you can do this, but just try. Already you have broken the morale and the confidence in me that I can actually do it. Sometimes people are capable of much more. You just need to believe in them and push them a bit. And they might actually do it. And share knowledge from where you see chances are you know much more. So share as much knowledge as you can for you to be able to make sure that the person actually gets what you're telling them. Remember about authority when we started from the beginning? Authority is very crucial in delegation because it means that you're giving that person the authority to make certain decisions and take action. Like you're saying, so if you are giving them some risky work in terms of decision making and action, you want to be clear. You want to clearly define limits of authority that you have actually transferred to them. If I have left you in charge of the department for 1 week, can you hire and fire, for example? Can you send people home and suspend them? Can you give them warning letters? Because some people, the moment you give them authority, it gets to their head, and before you come back, everything is killed. So you need to be very clear on the authority you have actually given that person. So for examples of what you can tell them in terms of degree of authority is that you can take action only after you have cleared with me. You are going to come up with these invoices, that is responsibility. But in terms of authority, you don't send them out or you don't sign or stamp until you clear with me. Meaning they will going to come up with all the invoices and put them somewhere and then bring them to you for you to clear them before they go anywhere. That's the first way you can actually be able to define the limits of authority. The other way you can put it is take action and report completed action to me. So that you have come up with the invoices, you have actually stamped them, and you have signed them, then let me know that you have actually done that. Just in case I feel I want to look at them, I can still look at them. But finally, you could still tell the person, just take action. Just come up with the invoices, stamp, and send. So depending on the kind of work you are giving somebody, you want to ask yourself, what degree of authority are you giving this person? Are you asking them to clear with you first? Do you need them to finish and report to you just in case you need to check on a few things? Or do they have complete authority to make the decisions and take action without having to check with you or to consult you at any one time? So you need to always have that at the back of your mind. Delegating authority is very, very critical, and you need to be sure about it. So sometimes you want to have limited to actions or decisions related to the delegated task. So you're only limiting it to actions and decisions. You also want to think about the amount of authority, whether it should match the amount of responsibility. Because once you define responsibility, it needs to match the authority you have given that person. And that's why it is very important to clearly define the responsibility. That I have only left you in charge of the department to make sure work gets done and people come to work. So your authority also ends there. It should not exceed at that point. And like I said, if the delegated task requires the person to lead others, then you need to also let the other people that you have actually given that person the responsibility and authority to lead them. Because you leave me in charge of a department and you don't tell anybody, they'll be wondering, why is this person telling us things? Why is she asking why I came late? Why is she giving me work? Because you did not pass that information. So if you delegate, then the rest of the people also need to know that you actually delegated to somebody so that they can also be able to reach out. So those are, again, just an addition to delegating authority because it's very critical and it's one of the fears that we have in terms of delegation. The tricky bit about delegation is that you need to get agreement. Like I said, it is not automatic. It is not my responsibility actually to take the work you give me because as long as it's not in my KPI or job description, I might argue with you a bit. But again, with all your emotional intelligence and being a leader, you always know the language to use so that doesn't become a debate. It looks like it is work that we could actually help them do. But that also means that you allow the person an opportunity to accept or not accept the assignment you give them. So if somebody tells you they are not able to do the work, you actually can't hold it against them. Maybe in other smaller areas, like when you're talking about being team players, you might tell them they were not good team players because they have been refusing all the delegated work, but you cannot really force it down their throat. So you can't force somebody to do a job that is outside their job description in terms of delegating. So the subordinates need to want to do that assignment and also need to make sure that the delegate understands what is involved. Because from the beginning, if they don't understand all that is involved, they might feel like you tricked them. You tricked me into pulling a report and now you want me to analyze that report and come up with a presentation and now go and present it. This is not what I had understood from the beginning. So for purposes of getting agreement in terms of delegation, the delegatee needs to understand everything that is involved as far as that task is concerned. They need to want to take up that assignment. You can't force it down their throat. And you need to allow them an opportunity to take it or not take it. Because again, like we have said, it is not in their KPI or job description. It is just a way of growing them. You can use it against them when you're having informal discussions about maybe them being team players, but not necessarily holding them accountable so much. But it's important to demand for accountability, even as far as delegation is concerned. Remember, you've given the person responsibility, you have defined the responsibility, you have defined the level of accountability clearly. It's good to hold them accountable to some extent, make them answer for the results. Because if they don't, you're also not helping them. If you don't get to make sure that they give good results, they're also not learning. So the final product needs to be evaluated against expected results. You need to have a discussion with them in terms of this is what I had wanted. I wanted it done this way. You have actually made it well up to this point, but these other points you need to go back and do it better. So you need to hold them accountable for results because it is also for their own good. It is also for their own growth. So the final product needs to be evaluated against expected results. So make sure each person knows what they are accountable for. What are you holding them accountable for? Is it them coming up with a nice report? Is it the client signing to an agreement? Is it them just showing up and being nice to the client? What are you holding them accountable for? That also needs to be very clear because that also defines the results. It defines whether they did a good job or are not a good job. Because you cannot tell me you did not do a good job. You did not tell me what you expected or what you are holding me accountable for. So it needs to be very clear from the beginning. What is my responsibility here? What's the level of it? What's my level of authority? How far should I go? And what are you holding me accountable for? So that when we come down to feedback, you can actually tell me you did not do well because of item 1, 2, 3, and then we can actually be able to talk through them. As they go through that delegation process, you need to define a few things like milestones. If it's a project that's going to run over a long time, how often do you need to check in? What milestones are you looking at after a week or after a few days? How do you check those milestones and know that they're actually making good progress? How often do they need to check in with you? What's the level of frequency in terms of feedback? How often should they be coming to you to check in and tell you this is how far we have gone, this is what we are struggling with? All those things needs to be given consideration from the beginning. Of course, you need to strike a balance. They also have work to do. So people cannot be doing all delegations from Monday to Friday. So also see that you strike a balance between the work they normally need to do and what you are delegating or asking them to do. I know I'm giving too much in a short time because we don't have time, but if I'm too fast, you let me know. But I will pause somewhere after delegation just to take in all your comments or questions. So the other thing you need to remember in delegation is that you need to learn how to let go. Again, you don't delegate and be on somebody's shoulder every 1 minute. Hey, how far are you? Why is this not looking good? They have not even taken the time to polish it. So give the person time, unless it's urgent work, which you should have considered anyway. You don't want to be on somebody's neck every minute. So avoid the tendency to jump in and take over. Because if this person is being too slow, bring back that work, I do it. You're also going to make them lose confidence in you. So avoid the tendency to jump in and take over. Allow subordinates to correct mistakes without interference. If you have told them what needs to be done, let them go back and correct and make the corrections. Allow them to approach the task in a different way. Sometimes you put people in a box. Just because you run your report in a certain way and your Excel looks a certain way, does not mean the person has to put it exactly the same way, put the same font, put the same colors, put the same everything. Sometimes people have creative way of doing things. They might have gone to a different school and learned something that you don't know. So give them that leeway to try to approach it differently, but still give you the results that you want. So you can be flexible about the process, but stick to the goal or the results that you actually want. So give them the leeway to do things their own way. Let go, but don't drop off completely. Just because you're letting go does not mean you leave the person to do everything. It means you're giving them a chance to work, but you're also being involved. It also means you're giving them minimal supervision with an open door policy, meaning if they have a challenge, they can always come to you. They have a challenge, they can actually call you and you can be able to help them through whatever it is that they're going through. Like I've said, balance, emergencies, other things might come up in between. So just because you told the person you wanted by 6 p.m. and if something else more urgent comes up, be flexible enough to know that they might actually have not managed to finish it by that time. When work is well done, again, positive reinforcement, feedback, reward. Always give people feedback. If the work is well done, let them know it was well done. Reward, I always say it is not a gift. It is something as good as well done. Thank you. You did a good job. that actually gives them motivation to take up a next role when it is being given. So provide positive reinforcement when the final product is well done. If it meets expectation or exceeds the expectation that you had initially, give them the reward for that. Provide constructive feedback. Yes, Lydia? Lydia, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, you lost me somewhere.
We last had you on. Yes.
Sorry?
The recent slide, please. The second
Just
last
go back
point
to
on
the
the recent
previous
slide.
slide.
It's when we last had you.
Okay.
Yes, minimal supervision.
Minimal supervision, that's where I disappeared. Okay. I hope I'm clear now. So let me go back there. So we were talking about you learning how to let go. Basically, what you're trying to say is avoid micromanagement, but still be supportive through that process. So after letting go and not dropping out completely, I said minimal supervision with an open door policy. So by open door policy, I don't mean sit in the office and open the door. I mean be accessible, whether on phone or email, on physical. If somebody actually needs to get in touch with you, clarify something, ask for help, they need to be able to reach you. Provide for emergencies, other things that might actually come up that we had not anticipated. So if this work you delegated needed to be finished at 6 p.m. and something else came up, an urgent meeting or something urgent, a crisis with a client that the person needed to sort out, you actually need to be able to provide for that. So always be flexible in terms of how things unfold. I hope you can hear me, Purity.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So we said after that, make sure you reward accomplishments when work has been done, after work has been done, provide positive feedback. If somebody has met the expectation or exceeded expectation, give positive reinforcement. Tell them thank you, tell them it was a job well done. Let them know that they actually did well, because that is motivation for the next task and even for their own growth. If it was not done to expectation, give constructive feedback. If the person did not meet the criteria that you needed, again, it is a chance for them to learn. It's a chance for you to teach them something. So give them constructive feedback. Constructive feedback is not telling them this was very poorly done. So what was poorly done? What exactly did not meet your expectation? What is it that you expected them to do that they did not do? So be very clear about what they were not able to do, and then give them that feedback. But again, only giving feedback is not enough. Also take feedback. The person you gave that work to, they also have something to say. So solicit feedback from the subordinates after the evaluation process. What do they think? How was that task that I gave you? How was that meeting with the client? What was your experience? What did you find anything interesting about it? What do you think? So that you also get to know, is it something that you want to do again into the future? Are they open for such forums? Are they open for such tasks or responsibilities? Are they people who are actually open to grow? Because by getting that feedback, you also learn. Is there something maybe you would have done better? They might tell you, next time I think I would be able to do that if you gave me on a Friday, I would want to work it over a weekend. That's also feedback, and it is good to get such feedback. So also listen to the subordinates and also get to understand, is there something that actually they might have to give you in return? Because you learn both ways. Communication is both ways. It is give and take. So also be willing to take back information. So in summary, in terms of the steps that we've been talking about, first think from the beginning, do a plan. Who can you delegate to? When do you want to delegate? What are you delegating? Like we said, analyze what you can delegate. Where, like maybe where in terms of departments or area, how do you want to do that delegation? Do you want to sit with the person? Do you want to call the person? How do you want it done? Assign it to the right person, like we say, are they motivated? Do they have the competency? Do they have the credibility to take up that work? Give them as much information as they require. What is the background information? Why do you need to do this work? Why should you do it in a certain way? What had happened the last time this task was done? Give as much information as possible. Discuss expectations, responsibilities, limitations, consequences, because you want to clarify the level of responsibility, you want to clarify the level of accountability, you want to clarify the level of authority. So it needs to be very clear in terms of what is expected of them and what are the limitations. How far is too far? How far are they supposed to go? Assist them along the way. Be very clear that they can access you, that they can actually be able to reach out to you or to somebody else for assistance. Track progress. Like I said, you're not hands off. you want to define milestones. At what point should they tell you how far they have gone? At what point do you also want to check how far they have gone? So track progress. If there's somebody else you need to update about the issue, of course, you want to also keep updating the other people who are involved, especially if maybe it's a team project. But finally, when the work is done, give feedback. Constructive feedback, positive feedback, whatever feedback that you have about that work, that the way it was done, remember to always give feedback so that people can actually know if they have done well or if there are things that they actually need to be able to give. So before I go to the last aspect of delegation, I feel like I want to pause there because I have said too many things. I pause there for like a minute or two and throw it back to the team. Any comments or questions on those many principles of delegation? From what you want to you should delegate or not delegate, or the other principles that you have looked at in terms of the person you are delegating to, the responsibility, the information that you need to give them, the authority, in terms of getting agreement, the level of accountability, in terms of what you expect the person to do, the milestones in terms of feedback mechanisms, you not micromanaging, rewarding accomplishments, which is basically summarized in that table. So I want to pause there for a minute or two. Lydia and Tim, any comments or questions around delegation principles in a minute or two?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Mary. To myself, I think delegation. To myself, I would like to say that delegation seems broader than we anticipated or we thought it was. It has so many important steps to note, and it seems like once you miss out a step or two, it's what leads to that unexpected results or fear for poor results and accountability. Yeah, but if somebody respected all the steps from 1 to 8, if they are listed, I think delegation would be easier or it would be handled in the right manner. I don't know what my team has to say, my colleague.
Thank you so much, Lydia. I think that speaks to my last statement when you're talking about dealing with the barriers, that if you understand the process, then you're likely to beat a lot of the potential risks that come with delegation. So thank you for affirming that statement. Another comment or question? Somebody has muted us already. Does that mean there are no more questions?
There should be more questions.
Or somebody muted by mistake? Yeah?
I have one question.
Okay.
In the beginning, we among the challenges of delegation, we found out that one of them is like lack of trust, where the manager doesn't trust the subordinate as supposed. Now, we've seen how the benefits to both sides, we've seen all the benefits of delegation and all that, but how with all that, how to that person who is not having the trust, how can that person grow the trust to the extent that he or she can be able to delegate without that fear? Because this trust is brought by different things, like is not confident enough in that person, but how can that someone develop that trust to the person that he or she might need to delegate?
Thank you very much for that. I like the fact that you are saying the trust is brought about by different issues, because the issue that brought about the trust issue will be the beginning of dealing with that process. For example, if the trust is because you think this person is not capable, therefore you just they always look like they're either lazy or you just don't think they have the skills or the ability to do the job, then you don't want to start them on a big work in terms of delegation, and you also don't want to start them with work that needs to be done pretty fast or work that involves risk. So you want to start it on very minimal things. Just start by assigning them very basic roles. Then see how that unfolds so that you're also able to build them. Because if it's a skills problem, if the idea that you feel they cannot be able to handle the job, they're still your problem because they're your subordinates. And it is up to you to see how you can actually be able to develop them. unless it's an attitude issue. I always say attitude is a different thing. If it's an attitude issue, the person doesn't want to take up any delegation, then you may not have much to do around that. Because it's very hard to change people's attitudes. But if the person is actually willing, but you have the fear of that they cannot be able to perform, then start growing them slowly by slowly. Start with tasks that are not risky, and two, that you don't need them urgently. What that means is that they have all the time to actually work with it. First of all, maybe even them, they need the confidence that they are capable. So if they do the first task and they actually realize they can do it, and you give them the confidence that they actually did a good job, chances are they might be willing to take up something else and be willing to grow. The challenge you have here, they're your subordinates, they are your problem. Their growth is your work. So you have to see how to actually make it work. And like I've said, unless it's an attitude issue, attitude is very hard to deal with, unless the person is actually willing to change. But if it is a skills issue, see how you can start them from the very basic of things. But also remember, what you delegate to one person does not mean can be delegated to anybody else. You need to know the strengths of your people and their weaknesses. Again, because delegation is a voluntary thing, delegate what suits different people. What you delegate to if you have a presentation or some analytics to be done, might be very different from what you might want to delegate to somebody who is probably going to a dinner. Even a dinner can be delegated. So if you have delegated somebody to go to a dinner where people just need to chat and have fun, you know who in your team is good at that. If you want to delegate work that needs to somebody to sit down and analyze work, you know who to give that. So again, doesn't mean just because there's work to be delegated, it belongs to everybody. Know your people, know who can do what, and who is interested in growth in which direction. Then in that case, you know how to delegate in a relevant way and in a way that grows people in the direction that they actually want. Oscar, does that help? Was that Oscar? Lydia is just muting them.
No, it makes sense.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm glad it makes sense.
I couldn't agree more.
Thank you very much. Okay.
I mean, we can all take from this and learn a few things to improve on our delegation.
So the other aspect of delegation that I wanted to finish with is something we call reverse delegation. Have you heard of that word? Reverse delegation. Who has come across that word in their long life of school?
What is that?
Reverse delegation, like reversing. Reverse delegation. Sounds familiar to anyone? John, any idea what reverse delegation is?
I don't know it, but as the term is, my understanding is like now the manager was delegating the subordinate. Now it's like one of the tasks that is being done by the subordinate is now going to be delegated to the top, like supervisor and manager, who is supposed to be the one.
Very true.
Now reversing.
Yes, very true. It is exactly what that word says. Because the way we understand delegation is that the person who is senior delegates the person who is below them. But there are circumstances or there are situations where we have seen people actually doing the reverse. So somebody has been doing some work and now they are sending it to you. What do you think is, what do you think? What's your thoughts around reverse delegation? Should it happen? Should it not happen? Any idea in terms of reverse delegation? Anybody with a thought or has experienced it? They could tell us how they dealt.
Sometimes it might happen. It may happen because it depends to the company, first of all. There's some companies it might happen. You might find the companies having like few number of staff, and even that the structure of that company is not that big with a very long hierarchy, long chain hierarchy. But you find there are few staff where you find that junior staff maybe is going on a leave or something like that, and there are few staff where you find, which means even if it's going on leave, and it doesn't mean that you are bringing someone new, even that supervisor on top is available to just support, meanwhile, by the time that person is not around. So I think it depends on the company and to also the task. So it can work depending on the type of the company, how big and how. That's what I think.
Okay, so depending on the company and the hierarchical structure, you might actually find it happening like naturally. It's not even the subordinate who is asking, it's because maybe he's away or the work is too much. And as a supervisor, you might just be able to chip in. What about in circumstances where you don't have scarcity of resources, but you have subordinates who want their boss to do their job? What do you think? Assuming where you sit right now, you have enough resources. What would happen if your junior comes and asks you to do a certain job for them?
You're asking me?
Do part of their job, and you don't have scarcity of resources. The person is in the office.
I think that's okay to me because whatever everyone is doing, it's just for the benefit of the company. So we all do each one's assignment with the same objective. The overall objective is to achieve the company goals. So if that person is unable because of some reasons, maybe sick or something like that, maybe he even wants more expertise that he cannot afford that job or task. Or he's having a lot and the deadline is at hand. So I think that would be okay as long as we all have the same target.
I like the fact that you're giving it reasons. If the person is sick, if the person is overwhelmed and there's a deadline, so there has to be good reasons as to why that role is actually coming back to you. Like you said, you have scarcity of resources, somebody is sick, there are deadlines, and you're realizing the work needs to go right now, invoices needs to go by today midnight. So we all have to do as many as you can. We just finish this work. So in that case, then it becomes a good thing to do. But if you're not careful, you can also have staff who can easily learn how to manipulate their bosses through reverse delegation. So if it happens, then you need to be very sure that actually somebody is not avoiding their job and there's nothing else they could have actually been able to do. So sometimes when reverse delegation happens, it means that the tasks you had delegated or the work that somebody is supposed to do ends up back in your bucket. It can take away, sometimes it takes away from tasks the supervisor is required to do, because if you're taking up somebody else's work, it means you are not able to perform your work unless you also didn't have much work to do. It rewards subordinates for unacceptable, because eventually you are going to rate that person based on the work that they actually did. So in this case, if you are the one who did all the work, then eventually it means that the rating you are giving that person is not, because it is the boss who did the job actually, not the person who did the job. So it can actually reward some unacceptable performance because the person was unable to do and you ended up doing the work for them. Eventually, it will read that the person did that job. It might actually reduce your credibility as a supervisor. So unless there are very genuine reasons, like you have said, and people know those reasons, they might actually be knowing, this work looks too much, just take it back to him. Imagine he's going to do it for you. And if it gets to that point, they know you're going to do it for them. So it can actually reduce your credibility if you are always doing it for them. And the bad side of it is also it can actually prevent your subordinate growth and development. So sometimes, unless it is pushed to the wall where nothing else can be done, you are better off guiding them on how, instead of you doing the work itself. Because if they learn how to juggle, even if they are overwhelmed, let them learn how to juggle. Let them learn how to work it out under pressure. And if they learn how to manage themselves, manage the time, prioritize work, and then they learn and grow in that process. So it is not always a good thing to do, but you can actually be able to avoid it, avoid the bad side of it, I mean. How are you able to do that? When somebody asks you to do something, when a subordinate does a task that is incorrect, give them feedback or training as needed, but give it back for revision. So if I did something and it was not well done, instead of doing it yourself, give it back to that person. Tell them what needs to be done right. Tell them how they could actually do it. Let them go back and correct it themselves. That way they take the responsibility without handing it over back to you. If they come to you for help, give whatever help is required, but don't just do the job yourself. And I know sometimes you're thinking, if I do it, I'll finish pretty fast. So you think instead of telling them what to do, tell them, let me just do it. That let me just do it is a culture you are creating where your subordinates are not going to learn things, where they're not going to learn how to do things by themselves, where they always throw things back to your bucket list. So when they need help, give them the help that they need. Tell them where they can get the information. Tell them who they can actually be able to work with so that they actually learn to do it themselves. But always be available for help and support, but refuse ownership of their tasks. Because again, if you do it when I was away for a week, I might come back and still expect you to continue doing it. So eventually, I might actually drop ownership of some tasks that I feel you could actually do for me. So to avoid too much reverse delegation, give people feedback and training when a job is not well done. Give people help that they need instead of you doing the job yourself. Be available for support, but not taking ownership of their work. So unless in those special circumstances, which I'm glad you are able to pick, somebody is sick or we are very few in the office, there's a deadline to meet. Unless in those very rare circumstances, reverse delegation, you should look for a way of avoiding it for their own good in terms of their growth, and for your own good in terms of focusing on the things that matter to you, and for your own credibility as a leader. That is pretty much important. So in summary, as far as delegation is concerned, we are saying the main things is that you need to know yourself first. What are your fears around delegation? How have you been doing it? What are the gaps that you may need to fill in and do better? Know your people. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What are their capabilities? So that you make use of that. Follow the basic rules in terms of the principles of delegation that we have actually discussed. Take your time because it takes time. People don't grow in a day, it's a whole process. So you have to be really patient for you to learn it and for your subordinates to learn the new things you want them to do. And believe that you can actually do it and your team is also capable of doing it. So you also need to believe in yourself enough to be able to actually be able to handle it. So that brings us to the end of delegation. So any question or comment on delegation as I see how to navigate coordination in the limited time I have?
Any questions from the team in Kigali?
No, I think we are on my side. There's no question apart from I think we'll use these notes, they will help us going forward.
All right. Let me ask, how much time can we extend to be able to cover the outline for today?
That's from me?
That's from the team in Kigali.
Oh, yeah. How much more time can you afford?
Yes.
So that if you can't afford, then we say tomorrow is also another day.
Yeah.
You have another question?
No.
That is for this session or there's something?
Yes, for this session. You know, we started almost 45 minutes late.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and it's like 4 minutes to 5.
Yes,
Kigali
5
time.
in Kigali, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so not on my side, but I know anytime I'll be stepping out for another meeting, but I wanted to know which part are we meaning this, because depending on what we are, then we.
Delegation, control, and coordination is the topic.
Or the coordination.
Yeah, so we just covered delegation.
So there is coordination
and control.
There's coordination and controlling.
Okay. May I request the fact that we are missing two managers, Patrick and Phil, that we see how to schedule it so that they be part of it.
Or we fix it another day?
I don't know whether there's a session that we can add it on. I don't know how flexible. When would you have Rosemary again? If it was Rosemary to continue this?
Okay, let me see. Because What do you think, Rosemary, first of all?
The fact that actually the session starts at 4 of Kenyan time is easy for me. Normally, I'm done with my sessions for the day.
For the
Usually runs
day.
up to around 3:30 or 4. So
Okay.
it would be pretty easy for me. And of course, it would probably take an hour or 45 minutes.
Oh, so that we finish on this and another hour or 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this week I see on your calendar is a bit tight because we have change management 1 and change management 2. What if we are, let me think. Can I speak to Lydia separately and then we agree on a date where we can finish on this session?
That's all right, Purity.
That's all right.
Yes.
Okay. So I think then
even currently Queen is not in good health, so
okay.
It would require us like to have her a few days and see if she can come back over the week or next week.
Okay.
And so that we can attend this together. Yeah.
All right. So then let's stop at delegation, but we'll send you the notes up to delegation plus the video, everything. Then once we agree on another date and time, then we'll welcome back Rosemary to finish on that.
Yeah, that's okay, instead of having to rush too much.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I think that is it from us here in Kenya. They're in different places altogether.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll talk to you on Wednesday. Sorry? Hello?
Okay, when it is, I'm saying you might find that you and Rosemary, there's a long distance than one of you and today.
For sure, for sure. So, so I'll just.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Purity. Rosemary, thank you very much for the session. We look forward to. I know that it's Thursday that I'm not around. We don't have a session on Thursday, so I should be making it for the next session.
Yeah.
But we appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'll just encourage all of you to join the change management training on Wednesday and Friday. It's very important. So I think all of you should be able to join that session.
Yeah.
Okay.
We hope.
We hope so, eh? Same here. All right. Talk to you soon and on Wednesday. Thank you so much, Rosemary, for that.
Thank you so much too. So I look forward to when we complete.
All right. Good evening and God bless you all.
Okay. Take our apologies for all
no problem.
It's okay. We'll fix it.
All right.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.